My ex-wife was pregnant. But the son wasn't mine. The pain of discovering his betrayal was devastating, but what came next destroyed any shred of pity I might have had. She wanted me to take over the child, as if the truth were an insignificant detail, as if I were just a piece in her dirty game. When I found myself in that position, with her begging me to do what was right, something inside me broke. The man I was, the devoted husband, the companion who believed in his word, died there, at that moment. In his place came someone who would not hesitate to seek justice. But it wouldn't be the justice of the courts, it would be my own. I sued her for abandonment, moved all the pieces so she lost everything, but that wasn't enough. I needed more. I wanted her to feel the pain, the contempt, the betrayal that forced me to swallow. And it was when I began to dig deeper, searching for the lover, that the truth began to emerge like a growing shadow. With every step, the lies unraveled, and what I found I could never have imagined. The man who destroyed my marriage, who ruined my life, was closer to me than anyone could imagine. The shock of this discovery wasn't just a knife to the chest, it was a blow that pushed me to the limit of what I could bear. I planned my revenge down to the smallest detail, calculating each move like a master in a game of chess, where defeat was not an option. But with each new piece that fell, the game changed, revealing something even darker than I had anticipated. When everyone was reunited, when the secret finally came out, I knew it wouldn't just be a victory. It would be complete devastation, a revenge that would destroy everything and everyone around it. She never expected this. Neither does he. But the truth has a cruel way of coming out, and my truth was about to destroy more than just a marriage. She was about to devour an entire family. What she didn't know was that I had discovered what she and he could never imagine. And believe me, the worst was yet to come. San Diego, a city where the sun never seems to set, with golden beaches and a pace of life that, at first glance, suggests unshakable tranquility. However, behind the closed doors of their elegant homes and in the brightly lit hallways of their modern buildings, dark secrets lurk. It was in this scenario that Lucas and Clara lived the first years of their marriage. Their relationship had always been intense. From the beginning, there was an explosive chemistry that seemed to burn the skin when they were together, a passion that brought them together with the force of a hurricane. Clara, with her bright eyes and charming smile, was the type of woman who attracted glances wherever she went. Lucas, on the other hand, was the safe haven, a businessman who had built his path with effort and determination, a man of few words but many actions. Their marriage began like a fairy tale. Luxurious trips, dinners in sophisticated restaurants and a life that many envied. However, over the years, reality began to erode the foundations of this relationship. Lucas dedicated himself more and more to work, while Clara, dissatisfied with the time he spent away from home, began to look for other ways to fill the emptiness she felt. She didn't just want to be the successful businessman's wife, she wanted more, she longed for something that Lucas no longer seemed able to offer. It was in this search that the first cracks appeared. Clara started going out more, first with friends, then alone. Lucas initially didn't care, I believed she deserved her space, her time. But gradually he began to notice subtle changes. Clara became more reserved, her cell phone was never visible anymore and the excuses about her departure started to sound repetitive. He didn't want to believe that something was wrong, he always trusted Clara and believed that what they had was solid enough to withstand any storm. But distrust is a seed that, once planted, grows quickly, and soon Lucas found himself questioning every detail. The last straw came on an ordinary night, when Clara, with an expression that mixed guilt and boldness, revealed that she was pregnant. But what should have been joyful news turned into a bombshell, when, coldly and directly, she confessed that the child was not his. Lucas felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. The man who always controlled every aspect of his life, who never allowed emotions to dominate him, found himself on the brink. Clara, however, did not seem affected in the same way. His coldness, his request for him to take care of the child, as if it were a simple detail that they could resolve together, was the trigger for Lucas' transformation. In the days that followed, Lucas retreated into himself. His home, once a haven of comfort, now felt like a prison. Clara continued to act as if nothing had changed, while he turned the events over in his mind, trying to understand where he had failed, where everything began to fall apart. Anger and contempt were transformed into a need for justice, for revenge. He wouldn't allow Clara to destroy his life without consequences. And it was then that he decided, he would sue Clara for abandonment, he would make her pay for every lie, every betrayal. While Clara packed her bags, ready to move on with her life without looking back, Lucas planned his next steps. He would use everything he had in his power to make sure she felt the weight of her actions. But as he began to put his plan into practice, he realized he needed to know more. Who was the man Clara had cheated on him with? Why did she refuse to reveal her identity? These questions consumed him, and he knew he couldn't rest until he had all the answers. Clara left, leaving Lucas alone in a house full of memories and silent as a tomb. However, for Lucas, this meant the beginning of a new phase. Pain gave way to fierce determination. He spent sleepless nights, reviewing every detail of Clara's life, every outing, every call, every suspicious smile. He searched messages, bank accounts, anything that could give him a clue. And it was in this obsessive search that he began to notice something strange. There was a constant in the nights that Clara disappeared, a pattern that he still couldn't decipher, but that bothered him deeply. While Lucas sank deeper into his investigation, San Diego continued its usual pace. The busy streets, the tourists on the beaches, the city lights at night, everything seemed so far away from the storm raging inside him. But he knew he couldn't go on like this for long. He was about to discover the truth, and when he did, everyone involved would pay the price. The tension grew with each new discovery. Lucas knew he was close to finding what he was looking for, but at the same time he was afraid of what that would mean. He had to be prepared to face anything, even if the truth was more painful than the betrayal itself. As the mystery of Clara's lover began to unfold, Lucas felt that his revenge would not be complete until all the secrets were exposed. And he was willing to do whatever it took to make sure no one got away with it. Now, with Clara out of his life and the truth getting closer, Lucas knew the time to act was coming. The pieces were falling into place, and soon, he would have in his hands not only his lover's identity, but also the power to destroy Clara's life, as she had destroyed his. And once that happened, there would be no going back. The stage was set, the actors were ready, and the tragedy was about to be revealed. All that remained was the last piece of the puzzle, the identity of the one who dared to betray his trust. And when Lucas found out, he knew their world would never be the same. The silence of Lucas's house was slowly replaced by the incessant sound of computer keys. Each click was charged with determination, each search for information reflected a growing obsession. Lucas was determined to find out who had taken his place in Clara's life. He knew that finding his lover's identity was crucial not only to his revenge, but to understanding how he had allowed his life to fall apart without realizing it. Obsession turned into focus, and that focus led him to delve deeper into the most mundane details. The first clue came from a database that Lucas hacked without remorse. Between financial transactions and forgotten receipts, he found a pattern. Clara had made several transfers to an account he didn't recognize. The recipient of the transfers, however, was someone familiar, Tomas, his distant cousin. Lucas immediately remembered Tomas at family events, always discreet, never attracting much attention, but always present. There was something unsettling about this connection, something that didn't immediately make sense but that Lucas couldn't ignore. Why would Clara be transferring money to Tomas? And why didn't you ever mention it? Lucas refused to believe that Tomas could be the man Clara had chosen to betray him. They had a cordial but distant relationship, and there were never any signs that anything might be going on between them. But the coincidences piled up. Clara had mentioned, in a moment of distraction, that she was taking care of a favor for someone in the family. At the time, Lucas didn't pay much attention, but now, looking back, he began to realize that there was much more behind those words. For Lucas, the situation became a mix of conflicting emotions. The anger at the betrayal was still present, but now it was accompanied by a growing fear of what he might discover. What if Tomas really was the lover? What if betrayal was even closer than he imagined? He knew he needed more proof, something definitive that would confirm his suspicions. Having decided, he began monitoring Tomas' steps, using the resources he had at his disposal to track his activities. Lucas discovered that Tomas regularly visited a discreet cafe in downtown San Diego, a place Clara also frequented before the truth came out. Following this lead, he decided to confront Tomas in an indirect way, something that could get the truth out of him without arousing suspicion. Lucas began to appear at family events more frequently, watching Tomas with a critical eye, looking for any sign of discomfort. And he found it. With each meeting, Tomas seemed more nervous, avoiding Lucas's gaze, changing the subject whenever Clara was mentioned. One day, Lucas approached Tomas during a family meeting. The conversation started in a banal way, but soon Lucas started to mention Clara, in a subtle way, but full of intentions. He talked about the past, about how far apart they were now. He observed Tomas carefully, and it was at that moment that he noticed the tension on his face, the slight tremor in his hands. It was subtle, but for Lucas, it was enough. He knew there was something there, something Tomas was desperate to hide. Lucas decided he needed to go deeper. Using his contacts, he gained access to Tomas' message history. The reading was devastating. The messages were direct, full of emotion and desire, exchanged between Clara and Tomas, revealing a relationship that had begun long before Lucas' marriage began to collapse. The anger Lucas felt when he read those words was indescribable. Tomas, his own blood, had infiltrated his life, destroyed his marriage, and for so long, Lucas hadn't noticed. But Lucas didn't just want to confront Tomas and Clara. He wanted to destroy them both at once, and he knew the perfect opportunity was approaching. A family meeting was scheduled for next month, and he knew that both Clara and Tomas would be present. He planned every detail, preparing a trap where he could expose the truth to everyone in a devastating way. It wouldn't just be a personal revenge, it would be a blow that would resonate throughout the family. In the days leading up to the meeting, Lucas maintained control, masking his anger with meticulous calm. He interacted with Tomas as if nothing had changed, but inside, the storm was raging. Clara, in turn, seemed increasingly distant, without imagining what was about to happen. Lucas was waiting for the right moment, the exact time to act. And when that moment came, there would be no going back. As the meeting date approached, Lucas mentally reviewed every detail, every word he would say. He made sure no one suspected his intentions, maintaining a serene smile while internally fueling the flame of revenge. He knew he was about to dismantle Clara and Tomas' lives in a way they would never forget. And when that happened, he would be there, watching every bit of the destruction he would cause. The tension in the air was palpable, and time seemed to drag on until the day of the meeting. Lucas was ready, his trap set, the secrets about to be revealed. And when the moment arrived, the impact would be so devastating that nothing, not even blood ties, would be able to unite what was about to be destroyed. The house was full of family members talking excitedly, without the slightest idea of what was about to happen. The family reunion, an event that occurred every year, was a tradition that Lucas always respected. This time, however, he had prepared for much more than a simple encounter. Laughter echoed through the corridors, wine glasses were raised, toasting another year of achievements and togetherness. But behind the smiles, there was a carefully orchestrated plan. Lucas arrived punctually, dressed impeccably in a dark suit. His posture exuded confidence, but his eyes betrayed the storm within. He greeted everyone with his usual cordiality, exchanging hugs and handshakes, while his mind remained focused on that evening's objective. Tomas was there, a few meters away, engaged in a casual conversation with other relatives, oblivious to what was coming. Clara was also present, keeping her distance from Lucas, as if she knew that any attempt to get closer would be useless. As the night progressed, Lucas watched closely. He was waiting for the right moment, the moment when everyone would be relaxed, vulnerable, and then launch the final blow. While the dishes were being served, he took the opportunity to circulate around the room, evaluating expressions, looking for signs that anyone might suspect his plans. But everything seemed to go as usual. It was the calm before the storm. Finally, during dessert, Lucas decided to act. He stood up from the table, attracting the attention of those present with a light clink of his wine glass. The conversation stopped, and all eyes turned to him. This was the moment he had been waiting for weeks, the moment to reveal the truth that would devastate not only Clara and Tomas, but the entire family. "I would like to say a few words," began Lucas, his voice firm but carrying a dark tone that immediately aroused the curiosity of those present. "This year has been a year of revelation for me, a year in which I learned that the truth, no matter how painful, always finds a way to surface." Tomas, who until then had been distracted, looked up, intrigued. Clara, on the other side of the table, froze. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't predict what was coming. "We all know family values," Lucas continued, walking slowly around the table: trust, loyalty, respect. "These are the things that keep a family together, that make us strong even in the face of adversity. But what happens when those values are broken? When someone we trust betrays us in an unthinkable way?" The silence in the room was absolute. Lucas could feel the tension building, like a rope that was stretching and about to break. "Some time ago, Clara and I decided to go our separate ways," he said, stopping behind Tomas's chair. "It was a difficult but necessary decision. However, what few know is the true reason for this separation. Clara, the woman with whom I shared a life, chose to betray our marriage, something I could never forgive." Clara was motionless, her eyes fixed on Lucas, without reaction. Tomas, in turn, began to sweat, discomfort evident on his face. "But the most shocking thing," Lucas continued, his voice now as cold as ice, "wasn't the betrayal itself. It was finding out who this betrayal happened to." Lucas paused, letting his words settle in the heavy air of the room. He looked directly at Tomas, whose expression changed from curiosity to pure panic. "Clara," Lucas said, turning to her, "why don't you tell us who you decided to cheat on me with? Who you decided to destroy our marriage with?" Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. She knew there was no way out. Lucas didn't wait for her response. Turning to the others, he declared, "It was Thomas. My cousin, my own blood. The man I trusted like a brother." The reaction was immediate. A murmur of shock ran through the room, incredulous looks turned to Tomas, who shrank back in his chair, unable to face his family. The whispers quickly turned into exclamations of surprise and indignation. Tomas tried to speak, babbling disjointed words, but was interrupted by Lucas, who didn't intend to give him space to defend himself. "I discovered everything," said Lucas, now addressing everyone present. "Every message, every meeting, every lie. They thought they could hide it from me, that I would never know the truth. But the truth always comes out, doesn't it?" Tomas, now sweating profusely, finally managed to speak, but his words were weak, devoid of any conviction. "Lucas, I can explain." "Explain what?" Lucas interrupted, with a hard voice. "Explain how you were able to betray me in such a despicable way. How could you destroy not only my marriage, but the trust of the entire family?" The room was silent again. The impact of the revelation was devastating, and Lucas could see in everyone's eyes that his revenge was complete. He had planned this moment with surgical precision, and the result was exactly what he expected. Clara was in shock, unable to speak, and Tomas, humiliated in front of everyone, knew that his life would never be the same. But Lucas wasn't finished. There was still one more card to play, something he had saved for the end, the final blow that would seal their fate. Lucas took a deep breath, allowing the silence to last for a few more seconds. He wanted everyone to feel the weight of what was to come, the gravity of the final revelation. Looking at Clara and Tomas, he saw in them not only fear, but the understanding that they were about to lose everything. He knew this was the decisive moment, where the truth would destroy any hope they might have had of making amends for what they had done. Tomas, Lucas said, his voice now low and controlled, you were always seen as the loyal cousin, the family man. Someone we could all trust. And Clara, you were my wife, the woman who promised to be faithful until the end. But the reality is very different, isn't it? He approached Clara, leaning in slightly so that only she could hear his next words. You didn't count on that, did you? You didn't think I would find out that the man you cheated on me with was so close. Clara shook her head, tears began to stream down her face, but she remained silent, unable to face the consequences of her choices. But that's not all, Lucas continued, turning his attention to the entire room. There is something else that you all need to know, something that Clara and Tomas tried to hide from all of us. Tomas's eyes widened, and he finally found the voice to speak, but the fear in his voice was unmistakable. Lucas, please don't do this. Not here, not now. Now is the perfect time, Lucas replied, with a cold smile. This is the moment when everyone will understand what trust and betrayal really mean. Lucas then pulled an envelope from his coat pocket and calmly opened it, revealing a series of documents. These are Clara and Tomas's bank records, he explained, as he leafed through the papers. The transfers, the meetings. Everything recorded, proving that this betrayal was not just personal, but deliberate. They had been plotting against me for a long time, and now, you all know the truth. A dead silence fell over the room. The shock on the family members' faces was evident, and no one dared to interrupt the moment. Tomas lowered his head, defeated, while Clara, still in tears, seemed completely lost. Lucas, now in full control of the situation, concluded, I knew that your betrayal would destroy my marriage, but I never imagined that it would destroy trust in our family. But you were wrong to think that I would remain silent, that I would accept this. And now, everyone here knows the truth, and the price you will pay will be very high. With these words, Lucas threw the documents on the table, as if getting rid of a burden he had carried for a long time. The room was silent, broken only by the muffled sound of Clara's tears and Tomas's heavy breathing. Lucas's revenge had been complete, and now, the emptiness that remained was all he had for himself. Lucas didn't feel joy, but he didn't feel regret either. He had done what needed to be done, and now, it was time to move on, leaving behind the ruins of what was once his life. He looked around, taking in the expressions of his family members, and knew that nothing would be the same as before. Lucas turned, without saying anything else, and slowly walked out of the room, leaving Clara and Tomas to deal with the consequences of their actions. The door closed behind him, and with it, a chapter of his life closed. The door closed behind Lucas, but the echoes of what he had revealed continued to reverberate through the house. The voices, once so full of life, were now muffled, as if the atmosphere was filled with a pain that no one knew how to deal with. Inside the room, emotional chaos began to unfold. Tomas, head down, seemed to shrink with every look of disapproval he received. Clara, still paralyzed by the shock, couldn't find the words to defend herself. All that was left for both of them was suffocating silence, filled only by the weight of their own choices. Lucas, outside, took a deep breath of the cool night air. He felt lighter, but at the same time, a strange feeling invaded him. The revenge he had so carefully plotted had finally been carried out. He had exposed Clara and Tomas in a way they could never repair. But as he walked toward his car, a dilemma began to form in his mind, a question he hadn't anticipated: what now? The life he knew had been destroyed, not only by Clara and Tomas, but also by himself. In his quest for justice, Lucas had transformed himself into something he never wanted to be. The man who was walking to the car now was no longer the same man who, months before, had discovered the betrayal. He was a reflection of pain and anger, a figure shaped by the desire for retaliation. But with the revenge accomplished, what was left of him? As he drove through the silent streets of San Diego, memories of the words exchanged that night still reverberated in his mind. He had achieved what he wanted, yes, but the victory had a bitter taste. Lucas knew that he had destroyed Clara and Tomas, but he also understood that something in himself had been destroyed in the process. Now he found himself faced with a moral dilemma he could not ignore: had he truly won, or had he simply lost himself in the darkness he swore to fight? He parked the car on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean, a place he often went to reflect on the most difficult moments in his life. The sea was calm, but Lucas felt the storm inside him growing every moment. He had planned every detail, every word of that night, but now he realized that he hadn't planned what would come next. It was as if he was adrift, without direction, after the storm he himself had unleashed. As the sound of waves crashed against the rocks below, Lucas began to question the consequences of his actions. He knew that Clara and Tomas would never recover from the public humiliation, that their lives were ruined. But did it really make him feel better? Revenge had been his driving force, but now, with his mission accomplished, he wondered if there was any way back to the life he knew. The moral dilemma he faced was clear: he had become judge, jury and executioner, but at what cost? Lucas understood that his quest for justice had consumed everything good he had. What if he hadn't exposed the truth? If I had chosen to move forward, leaving the past behind? The price he paid for the truth was something he was not prepared to face. And the question that echoed in his mind was one to which he had no answer: was it worth it? The darkness of the night seemed to intensify, reflecting the turmoil in his soul. Lucas looked at the horizon, not knowing if he would ever find peace. The ocean, so vast and indifferent, seemed to offer a cruel metaphor for their situation. He was surrounded by possibilities, but none of them seemed to take him back to the peace he once knew. In his desire for revenge, Lucas destroyed all that was left of the man he once was, and now faced the emptiness that remained. That night hadn't just exposed Clara and Tomas's secrets. She also revealed something profound about Lucas: his own heart was scarred, perhaps irreparably, by the choices he had made. And as he looked out to sea, a bitter truth dawned on him: in his quest for justice, he had become as cruel as those who betrayed him. With these reflections, Lucas realized that revenge, although rewarding in its execution, did not bring the closure he had hoped for. On the contrary, it opened wounds that might never close. And now, alone in the dark, Lucas needed to confront what he had done, not just to others, but to himself. Lucas walked away from the edge of the cliff, returning to the car, knowing that the real judgment was yet to come. And that judgment would be faced in the most ruthless court of all, his own conscience. The court of conscience is implacable. Days have passed since the family reunion, and the impact of the revelations continues to resonate with everyone involved. Clara, who once exuded confidence and charm, found herself stripped of everything she valued. The public humiliation was just the beginning of his downfall. With her reputation destroyed and financial resources depleted after her divorce, she was forced to leave San Diego. Clara tried to start over in another city, but the scandal followed her, like a shadow she couldn't avoid. Without support, without friends, Clara plunged into a lonely and bitter life, trapped in a cycle of regret and despair. She never found redemption, just a deep emptiness that consumed her little by little. Tomas, on the other hand, faced his family's wrath directly. Ostracized and despised, he lost his job, the trust of his friends, and any shred of dignity he still had. He tried to seek refuge in drinking, but the alcohol only intensified his guilt. What started as a temporary escape quickly turned into a spiral of self-destruction. Shame consumed him with every sip, and he soon realized there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. One night, unable to bear it any longer, Tomas made the final decision. Alone in his empty apartment, he took his own life, leaving behind only a short, emotionless letter in which he admitted his guilt but without asking for forgiveness. Meanwhile, Lucas continued his life in San Diego. The man who had planned and carried out his revenge now found himself at a crossroads. He had won, but the victory brought with it a loneliness he hadn't expected. The house, once full of memories, was now a constant reminder of what he had lost. Lucas tried to focus on his work, on his business, but the satisfaction he once found in his achievements seemed to have disappeared. The revenge he so desired stripped him of what was left of his humanity, leaving him with an empty existence. One night, as he looked up at the city lights from his apartment, Lucas finally realized the extent of what he had done. He had destroyed 2 lives, but he had also destroyed himself in the process. The anger and hatred that had fueled him for so long was now giving way to a regret he didn't know how to deal with. Lucas realized that although he had achieved his revenge, he had lost the one thing he could never regain, his inner peace. In a final decision, Lucas decided to abandon everything. He sold his house, stepped away from business and left for an unknown destination, leaving behind the life he once knew. The only memory he carried with him was an old photograph from a time when he still believed in love, before betrayal, before revenge. He knew he would never find the closure he sought, but he hoped that by leaving everything behind, he could at least find a glimmer of redemption. The story of Lucas, Clara and Tomas is a painful reminder that betrayal, even when avenged, leaves scars that time cannot heal. The price of truth can be too high, and in the end, personal justice can exact a cost that no one is prepared to pay. Lucas moved on, but the emptiness he felt was a constant companion, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when to let go of the past. The San Diego sea continued to crash against the rocks, indifferent to the fate of those who once lived along its shores. And so, the cycle was completed, lives destroyed by selfish choices, destinies sealed by revenge. The peace Lucas sought did not exist, only the consequences of his actions, which would follow him wherever he went. The real shock was in the realization that the victory he had longed for was nothing more than a devastating void. And so, the story ends, leaving behind a bitter lesson about the price of revenge and what it really means to win.